Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, and I'd like to open the study session for the City Council for the City of Wheat Ridge, Colorado for August 6th, 2018. Thank you for being here. Our first, before we get to our agenda items, we have citizen comment on any agenda items. And are you going to have the, I noticed on the sign-up sheet we had Joy Opp talking. If you would like to go to the podium, give us your name and name and address. We'll go from there.
Good evening, Council. This is Joy Opp. My address is 46 Hillside Drive. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Local Works, and I first want to read a letter from Christine Disney, and she is not here tonight because she's teaching yoga. I write to you today in lieu of speaking at tonight's study session, as I will be teaching a yoga class at that time. Krista Lewis, our new executive director, will be presenting our budget request for 2019 tonight. She and the staff have worked hard to sharpen their pencils to get our 2019 request as close to last year's request as possible, with minimal increases. I have reviewed the budget along with our executive committee, and I believe it is well thought out and a mindful use of the city's money. The breadth of things we do for the city continues to grow, and we have secured additional funding from Kaiser Permanente for our Activate 38 program, which looks at how Wheat Ridge can make 38th Avenue west of Kipling to Youngfield more accessible for those who walk, bike, or who need handicap accessible thoroughfares. I have served on the board for 5 years, 3 as president. In that time, I have seen the professionalism of our staff increase, and our events continue to bring more people to Wheat Ridge. Our events provide a free outing for families that might not otherwise have the funds for a night out as a group. Our TLC program with the Wheat Ridge Police Department has created safer and more attractive neighborhoods. We have succeeded in helping Wheat Ridge increase its appeal as a place where families can experience real hometown feeling. Our mid-century and modern home tour has served as a model for mid-century themed tours in Denver and Boulder. It sells out every year, and most of the people who attend don't live in Wheat Ridge. Our work has just begun, and I ask that you continue your generous funding of our programs. We are grateful for your support. I am extremely proud of this organization, and you should feel confident that we are good stewards of your funds. Sincerely, Christine Disney, Board President, Local Works. And I just want to say a couple of comments on my own behalf. As a board member of Local Works, I serve as the secretary on the board, and I have just seen this staff just really step up as an amazing outlet for our city, and Krista's leadership is phenomenal. I am so proud to be part of that organization. And as a citizen and a resident of Wheat Ridge, I just can't imagine a community without the spectacular events that Local Works puts on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was the only person I had signed up. Is there anyone else here tonight who would like to speak on citizens' right to speak, citizens' comments? You can do so now. Okay, seeing none, we will move to item number 1, which is the Action Center update. If you'd join us at the table. We have some. Do we need more chairs?
You can move it, yeah. It sticks. There you go. Just push the button so the green light comes on.
Well, thank you all for joining us. We should do some introductions. Why don't we start here at my left, and if you would.
Good afternoon. My name is John Covert. I'm the new Director of Development for the Action Center.
Press the little button right there.
Good evening. I'm Pam Breyer. I am the Executive Director of the Action Center. I've been with the Action Center for a little over 2 months now.
Hi, I'm Dave Norwood, and I'm a past president and treasurer at the Action Center, and am part of this special committee that's part of this fundraising effort.
Good evening. I'm Cindy Barraway, and I'm also a past chair of the Action Center Board, and I'm currently on the Board of Directors. Hi, Janelle.
I'm LaDawn Sperling, and I'm a board member of the Action Center.
Well, welcome. We're glad to have you here, and I will let you all make your presentation.
Well, first we want to thank you for having us this evening, council members. We're really appreciative of the time that you're giving us to hear about the Action Center and where we are today. The first thing that I really want to emphasize is that the Action Center is here and here to stay and delivering program services every day at our location. There has been a little confusion since we suspended the operations of the shelter, and so I just wanted to clarify for all involved that the Action Center is still providing services to over 80 families, 80 households a day at our center nearby. And we are celebrating our 50th year of operation in the community. And we very much appreciate all of the support and interest of the community during this time that has been, as you know, somewhat of a challenging year. And we wanted to explain to the council what has happened this year and why we are here asking for your support tonight. So in the last year, we have experienced some pretty significant transitions for the organization. So we had the longtime executive director who had been with the organization for over 15 years in that role move on to another opportunity. And that, of course, was destabilizing. We also had some turnover in our development team. We had the director of development move on to another opportunity and had a vacancy in that position for some time while we were looking to fill the executive director role. I joined the organization at the end of May, and right before I came on, a group of former board members and volunteers from the community who were very concerned about the Action Center got together to start looking at the financials, because that period of transition had really created some imbalance for the organization, and we found ourselves at a place which was still operationally very strong, but facing some significant cash shortages. And so the group came together and really studied the financials and started to put in place a very serious plan of action. And I joined the group pretty shortly thereafter. And so we took some serious steps to right-size the organization, and that meant a few different things. We had been on a spending freeze for quite some time. We took additional steps to do some layoffs of some staff members and to roll some programs, some of our program operations together. And we also took a hard look at our budget as we were getting ready for the new fiscal year. So we looked at both the revenue and the expense side of the budget and realigned that to a historic level of success for us. So we took our budget down in this new fiscal year to a budget that went from $3.9 million to $3.2 million for the coming year. So we have confidence in our new budget that we have set levels that we are sure that we can raise. We've brought on a new executive director and myself. I have a long history of managing nonprofit organizations for 25 years and have helped organizations in this position in turnaround situations. We've recently hired a new director of development in John Covert, and together we are putting forward a strong plan of action to reinvigorate our development operations and bring in the dollars that are going to be necessary to strengthen the organization and to sustain us in the year ahead. Take a breath for a second.
And here's some water if you'd like.
Oh, thank you. So we have reached out to the community across the board and have asked for the community's help in raising $1 million in 6 months, which would shore up our immediate cash challenges and help us to rebuild a reserve that had become weakened over the course of the year. And we have reached out to members of the business community, the faith-based community, the government, as well as individuals who have been supporting the organization for many, many years. We have over 4,000 volunteers and many more donors who are still very actively engaged and involved in our organization and have stepped up now that we have made it clear that we are having a challenge. It has been absolutely heartening to me to come into this organization and to see the level of support and outpouring from the community. Every day there are people coming to my office and saying, now that we know there's a challenge, we're here for you, we're glad you're letting us know, and we want to be part of this call to action. We also went recently before this Jefferson County Commissioners and told them of our need and asked them for a one-time investment in our operations. And after presenting our business plan to them, they had faith and confidence and gave us a one-time infusement of $50,000, in addition to a $200,000 match to challenge the rest of the community to come forward and also support us. So we've already, in the time since we started our Call to Action campaign, been able to draw down $100,000, over $100,000 of that match from the county. And we're working hard to raise the rest of the money from the community, and so we are looking to the municipalities as an important piece of that support for our organization. Over 10% of the participants that we serve on an annual basis do come from the Wheat Ridge community. And we take that responsibility very seriously to support Wheat Ridge, but also all of the municipalities across Jefferson County. And so we're hoping that the municipalities, that we know there are many things that demand your funds and your attention, and many deserving nonprofits. We hope that you will see the Action Center for the important organization that it is, the largest human service organization in the county, continuing to serve so many people who are in need and who are trying to avoid homelessness, who are needing a hand up in terms of food and clothing and rental assistance, energy assistance, and many, many connections to other organizations in the community that are helping us to meet the mental health and social needs of the individuals that come to us every day. Would
Thank
anyone
you.
like to jump in with things I might have missed? Sure.
I got involved as one of the three that was past board members when you talked about when we realized we had a problem before we hired Pam. We had an interim director, Kathy Hatfield, who had been the director of operations in the past. And the first question we all asked is, how did we get here? And I think that's an important topic because everybody that we have asked for donations in this campaign have asked the same thing, which is, how did you get here? And if we do invest in you, how do we know that you won't be here again in a relatively short time period? And so I just wanted to comment on that. Being a banker, I'm a financial person, and I ask those kind of questions of my customers all the time, asking for loans. And so what I looked at was that if you look at the level of revenues this organization has been able to raise in a sort of a year in and year out basis, what you'll see is in 15 we raised $3.4 million, in 16 $3.2 million, in 17 $3.3 million. And you remember Pam commented that our expenses were about $3.9 million, 3.8 to 3.9. The difference has been bequests. In 2017, the bequest was close to $500,000. And so we were operating at a budget and expense level that did require this extraordinary income, which we were able to find every year, but we did not find last year. And so what we have done is we have cut our budget so that we can operate at that 3.2 million, which has been predictable over the last 3 years. And even before that, I don't have those numbers. 3.2 is the type of level that this organization, through its diverse funding sources, and it's important to note that they're not dependent upon just one source. The largest source has been individual members. And so what's important to note here is what we've done is change our budget so the expenses are at the $3.2 million level, which aligns with, because it's a nonprofit, we're not here to make a profit, we're here to cover our expenses, which does align with what we have done over the history of the organization. And so what we have needed to do is to reinvest in our community development efforts, find that discipline again, and grow that 3.2, but we're not going to grow our expenses until we have grown those revenues at a sustainable level, not through extraordinary levels like through bequest. So I just thought I would add that. I think that's important to note. And we can answer questions.
Thank you.
I'll just add a little bit if you don't mind. So having been on the board for the past 10 years, I've been a volunteer for over 27 years with the Action Center. People may say, well, what happened this year that didn't happen in the years past? Because as a board member, that's one of our fiduciary responsibilities to ensure that this organization continues. It's such an important part of the fabric of Jefferson County. And I'll tell you that as we looked at the finances over the years, all of our audits have always been very good, very strong audits. Charity Navigator rates us very high. In fact, we give 90 to 92 cents of every dollar that we receive, we give back to the community. So we run a very lean organization. And we also had a capital campaign back between 2012 to about 2015, because we opened up the new program services building in 2015. And that probably took a little bit of wind out of the sails of some of our donors, a little bit of donor fatigue. We came and asked them for some bigger dollars at that time to open up the new space, which has been wonderful to have. And we had to do that for many different reasons. One of the biggest ones was safety reasons on behalf of our clients that we serve, as well as the employees that we have. But last year, a year and a half ago, let's say, as board members, we were sitting there looking at our budget and said, we were feeling a little bit good about it. We said, all right, it's time to ratchet this up a little bit. We're going to hire a few more people in our development team. And we added to staff and thought, we were going to continue on this path. Well, unfortunately, we had kind of a perfect storm of events where maybe not necessarily the right personnel in place, and some of our government grants are grants and such that we have to spend the money and then ask for the money back. So we don't necessarily have that kind of a cash flow, and so that came into play. Losing MAG was bigger of a hit than we thought it might be. So a lot of things just all kind of happened and culminated at one time. And as soon as the board picked up on that, that's when we started to take action. I think with Kathy Hatfield involved as the interim executive director, bringing on some of our past leaders as well, really opened up and said, here's what we need to do. And we took some very drastic actions. Shutting down, suspending the operations of the Action Center shelter was a big blow to many of us on the board, many of our volunteers, our employees, and to the community. But it was something we had to do to continue to operate and provide the services that we do provide to many people on a daily basis. So I just wanted to share that we were running well. It wasn't that anything had been mismanaged in the past. It's always been a well-run organization, and this is just one of those times in our history where we were just reaching out, asking for a little bit of help, and we hopefully will never have to be back in front of you again. So.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Norwood.
The reason for the $1 million of the request of what we're trying to raise through the whole community, and we're asking for that to be shared by all segments of the community. The reason for that is, if you remember, I mentioned that we had a bequest in the previous year of $500,000 that we did not receive this year. So there is the operating shortfall that we're trying to fill. The other half of that $500,000 that is really to rebuild our reserves, which is essential to provide the balance sheet liquidity so that we are sustainable, to ensure that we don't come back here.
Thank you. Why don't we open this up for questions from council? Do we have some? Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you for coming in for your presentation. When you guys talk about the shelter, you talk about suspending the shelter. Is there a long-term plan to reactivate that program?
It's a great question. Thank you. Yeah, we are currently talking to a number of organizations in the community who are interested in picking up the shelter operations, and we are talking to them both about their capacity to be able to manage the shelter, but also about whether their plans for the shelter are in line with the shelter operations as we were operating it. Our shelter was a program to support individuals in the community, more than just a drop-in for the night. It really worked to help get people back on their feet. And so we're really committed to making sure that that service and that the shelter itself is still an active service that's here for Jefferson County in the future, whether that would be us somewhere down the road being able to take it over again, but in the short term really looking to potential partners who can pick up the reins from us and then ideally work with us so that we can continue to provide other support services to the individuals that they're serving in that space. So we're currently in conversation with several different organizations who are interested in helping us by picking up that piece of our work.
Thank you. Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess as it relates to your administrative costs and the cost to raise money, my first question is, what's your cost per dollar to raise funds? And then also, what is your overhead ratio as it relates to the administrative cost of the organization?
I've been on for 2 weeks, counting today. So really those 2 weeks I've been spending a lot of effort really diagnosing from a fundraising perspective what has gone wrong, what's gone awry, and what can we do to fix it. To answer your question, I don't know what the cost per dollar raised is, and we'll get you that information, but do know that we've discovered where the challenges are, and we have a pretty aggressive plan to address those issues. And from a fundraiser perspective, they're all very simple. It's all about communication and speaking with people, keeping them well informed of what's happening and what's going on with the Action Center. And so we've already started to implement those plans. But I'll get you the cost per dollar raised number for you.
I would just say that right now it's fairly low because most of the people on the Call to Action Committee are all volunteers. We're not being paid. So there's probably core group of about 10 former board members, former chairs of the board, and current board members that are leading the charge.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
I think it was the percentage that goes of our administrative burden.
Sure, the administrative burden relative to the overall operating
And
costs.
that's something Cindy had talked about.
Yeah.
To clarify that.
Yeah, so Charity Navigator looks at various charitable organizations to see how much money do they spend out of the money they receive on administrative costs. Well, 90 to 92 cents of every dollar we receive, we put back out into the community. You'll find other nonprofits that maybe, they'll be as low as 70 cents go back out. We're fairly high on that end, and we've always run a lean organization. A lot of that is due to our volunteers, and you heard the number from Pam earlier. We'll have up to 80 volunteers a day that come in and help us out. And so it's just amazing how many people are involved in our community at the Action Center, and some of them have been involved. In fact, we have Shirley Bradsby, who's one of our founding members. So 50 years she's been a volunteer at the Action Center.
She's leading the effort to re-engage churches.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a large audience that tunes in for our broadcast tonight. And for their benefit and for all of our benefits, would you give us just a quick overview of the types of services that the Action Center provides?
Sure, I'd love to. So a lot of people know that people come to the Action Center for assistance with food and with clothing. Some of the things that we do that people don't know about are helping people avoid homelessness by offering rental assistance, offering energy assistance programs. We have Red Rocks Community College on site at our building, and so we help people to connect to education as a resource for helping them stabilize their life. We have a program called Pathways to Self-Sufficiency, and in that program, people take a 5-month deep dive work with a case manager who is helping them to identify the challenges in their lives and set goals to attain more stability. And so those individuals are oftentimes getting support around the kinds of resources they need to access better jobs, to get the training they need to land a job in the community, to get help with transportation. They may have a car that's been broken down or not registered, so they get some financial assistance around the car so that would enable them to get placement in a job. All kinds of wraparound supports, the things that individuals and families need to avoid having to come back time and time again for ongoing resources. So the services are very extensive, and we help people to get back on track. A lot of times people think that we're simply serving a homeless population, but we're serving people who have hit a rough patch. Many times it's someone who has been working in the community and something goes awry, they lose their job, or something happens in their family with someone's health care, and suddenly they find themselves in a very precarious position. They come to the Action Center for help, and they find that they're treated with dignity, treated with respect, and that we take a real hard look at everything going on for them, and then we connect them to every resource we have available to help them get back on their feet.
Mayor, if I may, can I give you two examples?
Please.
A few years back, all of the board members are asked to come in and share the load, to learn about what happens in the Action Center on a daily basis. And one day I was in there and I was at the check-in desk, and this woman started talking to me, and I said, you don't have to share your story with me. I'm just here, observing today. And she says, no, I want you to hear my story, because this can happen. I want people to understand this can happen to anybody. She was a teacher in Jefferson County Public Schools. She was a high school teacher who'd gone through a divorce, thought she could keep the house and, continue to pay for it, was not able to keep the house, lost the house, ended up couch surfing between friends and family, and eventually got to the point where she'd worn out her welcome with friends and family and was living in her car and had found out about the Action Center. She says, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be able to have food on some days. She was showering at the school. She goes, but I have a job. And that's what people don't understand, is here I am knocking on your door, but I actually have a job. I just don't have a place to live. So that's one example of somebody who comes and knocks on our door. And believe me, by the time they come and knock on our door, they really do need our services. And then some of you may know this week is school supply distribution at Stevens Elementary in Wheat Ridge. And what I've noticed is I typically work the computer when people check in. A lot of times I'll have grandparents who suddenly are found that they are taking care of now of 3 or 4 children, and grandma and grandpa are on a fixed income, and school supplies hit. And some of you may know that school supplies for one child can cost up to $100 per child. So that's an extra $300 to $400 hit that grandma and grandpa just don't have within their bandwidth. And thankfully, they've come to the Action Center. And some people may only use us for the school supply distribution because of that hit. Our goal is to keep people in their homes, and we don't want them to take the rent money and go take it to buy school supplies for their kids, so their kids can feel like every other child on the first day of school. Another time that we intervene is during Thanksgiving, because that's a big family event and people want to have good food on the table. So we also do a Thanksgiving food distribution the Sunday before Thanksgiving, and that's held over at the Jeffco Stadium area. And then the third intervention time frame is Santa. So we have a Santa shop right before Christmas, so that children up to the age of 12 whose parents are registered with the Action Center can come in and find new toys for their children. So we try to come at them from every way we can to help them stay where they are, maintain the expenses that they currently have, and when they get hit with that unexpected, again, my example with the grandparents, they're typically on that fixed income and they know what they need every month, and then when they find out what it costs for school supplies, I'm sure they're shocked. And to find out that the Action Center is there to help them is great. We serve over 5,000 children in Jefferson County during the school supply distribution week. So.
Thank you very much. Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'll applaud you on your about approximate 10% overhead. I think that's totally, I was going to say adequate, but adequate doesn't say it right. So that's good news. I am curious though, because we have requests from organizations similar to your own that come from Lakewood, they come from Wheat Ridge, and they come from Arvada and Golden. My question, and I've never asked this in the past, so I'm not trying to pick on you guys, but how do you guys fit in with all of the government assistance programs? I mean, I'm not even familiar with all of them, but someone loses their job to start with, there's unemployment insurance maybe, which may not cover everything, I understand that, but how you guys fit in with people that are on monthly welfare checks? And I still think of it as aid to dependent children. That's how far out of touch I am. And I know that there's SNAP or whatever out there, which is a food program, but how do you guys fit in with that?
It's a great question. We are not a government organization, but we partner very closely with the Jefferson County government. In fact, they have 2 days a week when they're on site in our building. So we are trying to make government resources more accessible to folks. When they come in, they can actually meet with someone from the county as they are coming in, sign up for the benefits, and get those get access to them through the Action Center. But we are also working very hard not to duplicate services. So we're working in concert with the government to do things that they are not able to do. So the food assistance, the clothing assistance, those pieces that the government just can't reach are the things where we're really working hard to fill the gap. We're also connecting people in the community to other resources like mental health resources, crisis resources that the government isn't able to provide. Cindy, did you want to also add?
So part of our food supply is a family can come in 6 times a year to get a week's worth of food. And the way we came up with that time frame is that typically it took 6 weeks to get onto SNAP or food stamps. And we didn't want them to go hungry during that time frame, so that's how we came up with the idea of you can come in 6 times a year for 1 week. You can do it 6 weeks in a row, or you can spread that out to the time frame when you know you might have a little more difficulty or something, big, huge expenses coming up. Our goal with the program services building when we did the capital campaign many years ago and opened it in 2015 was try to be a one-stop shop. So if one of our counselors sat there and told our client, well, now you need to go to the government center in Jeffco and do this or do that, they may not make it there because they have to catch a bus or they have to go pick a child up from daycare. So rather than having them spread all over the county to go find their services, we've tried our best to partner with as many organizations that our clients need to help them at our location. So they're going down the hall and talking to somebody from Jeffco Health and Human Services or somebody from Red Rocks Community College to get their GED, for example. We also help folks who are coming out of incarceration to help them get a driver's license. You can't do anything without a photo ID these days. And so we have partnerships with as many organizations as we can. And something that many of you who've been around the county longer may recall that we used to be called the Jeffco Action Center. Well, we intentionally dropped Jeffco from our name because a lot of people thought we were the government, and we're not. We are not the government. We are a nonprofit organization that was founded 50 years ago by people in our community who wanted to help their fellow community members. And that's what we are to this day. And so that's why we dropped Jeffco from the name, and that's why we're only known as the Action Center.
Thank you. Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Along those lines, relative to the food program, how does that food program fit into your overall budget in the sense that it seems like you guys have you had the shelter program, you have the general services program, then you have the grocery services. How does the grocery services fit into the overall budget? It seems like it's separated in some way.
I actually don't have the food service total, but it is a primary piece of our fundraising effort. A lot of our food program is a food recovery program, and so we partner with grocery stores in the community, the Food Bank of the Rockies, and get much of our food donated. So there's very little food that's actually being purchased. It's food that's being saved from the dumpsters and redistributed in our free grocery.
But as far as like how much do you pay a Food Bank of the Rockies? Because I understand they have quite a system or scheme set up as it relates to how they dole out those resources to different nonprofits. And
If I'm not mistaken, we pay a $500 annual membership to them, and I believe a $50 monthly, but it's a pretty minimal cost relative to the amount of food that they're bringing in every day.
okay.
Thank you. Any other, I'd like to sort of wrap this up if we can. Do we have any more questions? And the Action Center is coming to us with Ms. Dozeman.
Sorry, you're good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just wondering what other cities and areas that you're reaching out to for funds.
We're reaching out to all of the municipalities in Jefferson County. We've made a presentation a couple weeks ago to the city managers, and we have invited all members of elected officials from all of the municipalities to an open forum at the Action Center on the 14th of this month in the evening at 7 p.m. So if you'd like to come for a tour to see what our program operations look like and to hear more from us on that evening, please feel free and please spread the word.
Also, something else you may be interested in, it's not with the municipalities, but we are also working with the businesses and partnering with the Jeffco EDC, Economic Development Corp., which I know you're
Certainly
involved with. And this Thursday, they're having their Board of Governors meeting, in which it's the one for learning and networking, and it's going to be held at the Action Center. And so it's an opportunity for the various business leaders to see the Action Center, go through tours, Pam to do a presentation, and for us to reach out to the businesses also. So we're trying to reach all of the major groups, which is our individual members, which includes the board members, the businesses, the cities, the counties. We talked to Community First Foundation last week. So we're trying to spread this out among all of the stakeholders that have an interest in this community.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
I'm a little curious too. If you watch the national news, we're supposedly having some pretty strong economic upturns right now. Historically, how much lag time do you guys notice when the economy starts to pick up before people catch up enough? I mean, our unemployment's down to like 3.7 or something, and we've got record low unemployments. How long does it take before you guys see a softening in demand when the economy picks up?
I'm going to answer it from a different perspective. Unfortunately, in the Denver metro area, we have a huge problem with affordable housing. And so the cost of rent continues to increase, and that makes that's a huge pressure on our clients. Is, you know, they're trying to get ahead, and each time they get ahead a little bit, their rent goes up, or they have to move because the rent's gone up so much, or somebody wants to redo the facility that they're currently living in, and now they're maybe moving further away from where they work or where their kids go to school. So I think that even though the economy is strong, it's been difficult for our clients to get ahead because of the cost of housing. So I know that during the recession in 2008, we got hit hard at the Action Center. We had a lot of people I know they didn't expect to be knocking on our door, who knocked on our door, and you know they were very happy once they got off our books. Many of them turned around and come back to become volunteers for us. We do have a past client who is now a member of our board. They want to give back to the Action Center. But to answer your question from a perspective off a financial sheet, I don't have that. I don't know if Dave can speak to that or not. But from what I see and from what I hear from the people who come into the Action Center, really the big hurt right now is the cost of housing.
You know, I really don't have a detailed breakdown on here, but I do know, having been involved with the Action Center for 18 years and seeing the cycles, it's interesting. First of all, in your comment about the the strength of the economy on a federal level, I would suggest that we've been experiencing that strength of economy for a number of years. So we are ahead of the national economy because we have net migration here, and that's driving home prices. And what frequently happens is, as Cindy said, is one of the major challenges for our clients is they don't see their wages go up proportionate to their cost of housing. And frequently what they do is they choose to stop paying rent and instead have food on the table. And what we try to do is to say, don't stop paying rent, because once you lose your housing, replacing that's very difficult. And so we then provide the other parts of life that they need. Also, I think it's important to note that when the economy is strong in Colorado, there's a perception frequently by our donors that our services are not as strongly needed. And so fundraising can be more of a challenge at this time when there is such a need in a different way for our clients. It still is the same as a recession, but it's for different reasons.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming. We appreciate the work that you do, the volunteers that you marshal on the behalf of all of our citizens, and the help that you give our residents in Jefferson County. We will take your request under advisement. Thanks so much. I'm sorry, sir. We don't really have a question and answer time. I understand. Okay. Would it be possible for you to speak with the Action Center folks in the hallway, and they'd be able to help you out? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. That's okay. Just leave it right. Leave it right here. We're good. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to item number 2, the Local Works budget presentation. And would you like to join us at the podium or here? And Callista, why don't you introduce yourself and then go forward with your presentation?
Great. Everybody hear me?
Krista.
All right. I'm Krista Lewis. I'm the Executive Director of Local Works. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, ladies and gentlemen of the Council. It is my privilege to speak on behalf of the incredible staff, most of who are here tonight, board and volunteers of Local Works. As you are well aware, Local Works is a nonprofit that is advancing Wheat Ridge as a vibrant and sustainable community. In partnership with the City of Wheat Ridge, we offer programming that connects the community, attracts new and prospective residents, business owners, and visitors, and celebrates the unique charm of Wheat Ridge, all with the intention of promoting a healthy economy as well as ensuring the overall health and vitality of its citizens and community. Who is Local Works? Well, we like to say to our community, as someone who lives, works, and/or plays in Wheat Ridge, you are Local Works. We aim to connect and empower citizens to become the catalyst for a thriving, engaged, and healthy community. And because of that, our programming is designed with the entire community in mind. We will host around 50 events this year and will reach an estimated 26,000 people with our programs and services. With a small but mighty staff of 6, we simply could not offer these services without the support of our volunteers, partners, and of course, the City of Wheat Ridge. I hope to demonstrate this evening how Local Works has been a good steward of the generous funding granted by the Council. Our partnership with the city is instrumental in our success, and so I not only thank you, I congratulate you, Council members, for investing in programming that serves your citizens well and promotes positive change in Wheat Ridge. We are perhaps best known for our Ridge at 38 events. These events are meant to activate 38th Avenue by attracting people to Wheat Ridge's main street while engaging and connecting businesses, residents, and the community. Many of the food establishments see an increase in sales during these events. As we've heard from Colorado Plus, overall, your events have had a positive impact on business. We always see an increase in business on event days. On June 10th, some of you were there, we presented our 5th annual criterium that brought thousands of people to Ridge at 38. 300 racers from across the state competed in this race, which served as the Colorado Criterium State Championships. Local Works enlisted the help of about 70 volunteers who ensured a seamless and fun event for the thousands who attended despite the extreme heat. As one racer commented, "Great race! One of the best things about it is all the people who sit and cheer from their front yards. I can't think of another race where that happens." Another said, "Definitely one of the best racing environments I've seen in Colorado, with community support and attendance. Great job." Thanks, we think so too. This year's criterium also included the 3rd annual Brew Fest, featuring 25 beers from 12 local breweries, 25 vendors, 6 food trucks, and a kids zone. We were thrilled to welcome Robin Hart from KBCO, who helped promote the event with several radio spots during the week before. I'm proud to report that Local Works secured $20,500 in sponsorships, about $6,200 in registrations, and $12,000 in beer ticket sales, making this our highest grossing criterium and Brewfest to date. We look forward to our 6th annual in 2019 and have brainstormed already many exciting new improvements and modifications to help us continue to grow this event. We just concluded our 2018 Friday Night Live series, which also turned out to be a huge success. We kicked off the season with Cool Runnings on June 22nd and welcomed about 400 attendees. Our July 13 presentation of Coco attracted over 800 people. And we were thrilled to have 2 students from Wheat Ridge High School join us on stage to provide Spanish translation of the announcements that evening. Just last Friday, Star Wars: The Force Awakens attracted 300 despite the afternoon storms. At each, we feature local bands, crafts for the kids, as well as a few vendor partners and food trucks. This program is especially popular for families, as one attendee emailed us last Friday on behalf of her family, "Very fun evening tonight. Thanks for all the hard work all of you put into the 3 music and movie nights this summer." Ridge Fest is designed to celebrate the agricultural heritage of Wheat Ridge. Scheduled for September 8th this year, as in years past, Ridge Fest will feature bluegrass music, a classic car show, an artisan market and international festival, kids activities, and the return of the highly popular Chalk Art Festival in partnership with the Wheat Ridge Cultural Commission. We anticipate over 6,000 attendees again this year who will enjoy local food, wine and beer, and family-friendly fun. Scheduled for October 27th, Trunk or Treat offers a safe and fun opportunity for children to celebrate Halloween with their families. Volunteers decorate their car trunks in Halloween style and pass out candy to trick-or-treaters. This event also includes carnival games, a haunted house, and a best car costume contest. We expect over 4,000 attendees this year. We will present our 7th annual holiday celebration on December 1st, which serves as the official tree lighting ceremony for the city. Last year, we partnered with 12 businesses who all contributed to the event's success. 8 of these businesses opened their retail space for activities such as s'mores making, photos with Santa, ornament making, and more. As partners of the event, these businesses showed their commitment to their community while promoting their products and services to the 4,500 event attendees. We expect the same success this year. TLC stands for Traffic Safety, Life Quality, Crime Reduction. TLC Wheat Ridge is a partnership between Local Works and the Wheat Ridge Police Department Community Services Team to improve quality of life and prevent crime in targeted neighborhoods. 3 programs fall within TLC: cleanup days, dumpster grants, and block party grants. We host 4 cleanup days throughout the summer, paired with a presentation by Local Works and the Wheat Ridge Police Department to inform the community members about these opportunities, as well as educate them about code enforcement, safety tips, and available resources. We also offer dumpster grants for those who are not able to participate in the scheduled cleanup days. Instead, neighbors can apply for a grant to have a dumpster delivered to their neighborhood. Our block party grants are growing in popularity. Residents are realizing that a neighborhood block party can be much more than just a great summer social event. It can help build the foundation of a strong, healthy, and safe community. We received an amazing testimonial from a recent block party grantee that I would like to share with you. She says, "Those of us who are dog owners each brought out our dogs separately and introduced them to the neighbors so that if a dog got out, the neighbors might recognize them and know where to return them. Little did I know that my Cocker Spaniel would break through a screen window today during the thunderstorm while I was away from home at a meeting, and he was quickly identified, taken in by one of the neighbors, and I received a call. He was safely back home in less than an hour." Not only is this a heartwarming story, it illustrates perfectly how our TLC program helps to connect neighbors, both human and non, and strengthen the safety of their neighborhoods. Local Works Live Local Wheat Ridge program embodies the concept that the connection between community members, local businesses, and the synergy of positive change is the strongest method to create community. Live Local is about strengthening the connections that strengthen community. Live Local Harvest encourages community members to have a healthy lifestyle and support local food providers while building and strengthening friendships. Through this program, we host seed swaps, farm tours, and classes in gardening, composting, cheesemaking, canning, you name it. To date this year, we've presented 4 harvest events that have attracted 85 community members. We are gearing up for the Honey Festival on September 22nd in partnership with Four Seasons Farmers Market. This summer, Local Works is also offering lots of opportunities for people to exercise while connecting with neighbors and meeting new businesses through its Active program. One such opportunity is our monthly cruiser ride, hosted in partnership with the Active Transportation Advisory Team. The rides begin at the Green on Ridge at 38 and end at various local eating establishments. Every other Saturday, June through August, Local Works hosts Fitness in the Park, again on the Green. These are free outdoor fitness classes, including yoga, martial arts, boot camps, and more. And our Run Walk Club is offered every Tuesday night, June through August, starting at Right Coast Pizza. Participants can choose a 1, 2, or 3-mile loop to either walk or bike. And afterwards, Right Coast offers a $5 pizza and beer special to participants. Not bad. To date this summer, about 150 people have attended our Active events. Activate 38. Some of you may not have heard about this one as much. We're currently in phase 2 of this grant-funded project that will increase active transportation, transit use, and accessibility along 38th Avenue between Kipling and Youngfield. In partnership with the City of Wheat Ridge, Bicycle Colorado, Jeffco Public Health, Colorado Senior Connections, Jeffco Public Library, and Radiant Inc., Local Works is encouraging dialogue with the residents of the focus area that will help identify capital improvement program priorities and inform an active living plan and eventual corridor plan for that area in Wheat Ridge. Pints and Policy is an effort to examine local policy issues in a fun and social setting. We spend a little time on some content and a lot of time on interactive games, songs, and readings to explore what that issue means to our community. The discussion topics this year have included Bigly Tremendous 2018, hosted at Discovery Tap House, which provided updates on the 4 Investing for the Future projects funded by the 2E Tax Initiative. And Civics and Civility was hosted at IPI, and that examined how we as a community interact online, in person and on the streets. The goal of our Building Up Business Loan program is to improve the economic vitality and appearance of businesses in Wheat Ridge. We encourage existing and new business development by providing financial assistance for facade improvements, interior renovations, and small business equipment purchases. Local Works currently has 4 of these loans in its investment portfolio and at least 2 promising prospects in development. The 4 that we have currently are with Right Coast Pizza, Colorado Plus, Ornamental Beads, Paramount Wellness, which I want to share a few quotes from 2 of them. The first one is a quote from Eugene at Colorado Plus. He writes, "We opened our doors on May 13th, 2013, trying to convert the once 44-year-old Italian restaurant formerly known as Valente's, which had been closed for 4 years, was indeed a challenge, and we couldn't do it without the help of family, friends, and community institutions like Local Works. It was because of their faith and vision for the 38th Avenue corridor that they were able to offer us a low-interest loan to achieve the remodel necessary to ensure that our guests would come to enjoy consistent food, quality, and service for the community." And here you can see before and after photos of their remodel. The next is a quote from Erica of Paramount Wellness. She says, The Building Up Business Loan program has been instrumental in moving my business forward and making the necessary improvements to my newly acquired property. The team at Local Works really cares about about Wheat Ridge business owners and are truly dedicated to seeing local businesses thrive. And again, you can see her before and after photos. We also offer various tours of Wheat Ridge that are targeted to new and prospective residents, business owners, and developers. They are designed to showcase the amenities while celebrating the unique history and charm of Wheat Ridge. We are excited to announce our progressive dinner tour scheduled for November 15th. We will begin at Violet's venue on West 26th Avenue and progress from there to Colorado Plus for appetizers, Luke's Steakhouse for the main course, and end the evening with dessert at Post Oak Hall. In 2019, we will welcome back the widely popular Mid-Century and Modern tour and are exploring a possible tour of the new large-scale developments currently underway in Wheat Ridge. Wheaties Academy is a leadership program that provides dedicated community members across generations and geographies with the inspiration and the skills to turn ideas into action from the ground up. The 2018 Wheaties Academy tackled local issues, including improved communication between government and residents, promoting a vibrant economy via business partnerships, increased options for affordable housing, and community art. Their hard work culminated in a commissioned community art installation at the Anderson Pool building. Many of the Wheaties Academy graduates continue their engagement with Local Works by joining one or more of our advisory committees. As you may know, Local Works is in the midst of a listening tour. This is an opportunity for us to really listen to our community and ensure that we are appropriately addressing the needs and issues of those we serve. We will report our findings early next year and also use what we've learned to inform our organizational strategic planning. The tour is segmented into 3 different targeted audiences: city leadership. I'm scheduling one-on-one meetings with elected officials and high-level city staff, business owners via hopefully a happy hour/networking session that we'll schedule for the fall, and the community at large, reaching them through a couple of pop-up events and a survey that's being widely distributed among all the targeted groups. As of July 30th, we have received 138 survey responses. 26 of 138 respondents identify as business owners. Of those, 66% already volunteer with Local Works. 10% said they are interested in helping to engage the business community. 121 respondents identified as people who either rent or own a home. 106 are homeowners in Wheat Ridge. 39% of these respondents have already volunteered with Local Works, and another 12% signed up to be contacted about volunteer information. By and large, we have received positive feedback so far. Here are a few quotes that summarize what most are saying. Quote, "Local Works is doing a great job. I've seen a lot of community building and outreach in various municipalities, and it takes time. Keep up doing exactly what you're doing." Another said, "Local Works has done a great job promoting the unique qualities of our community and providing valuable and meaningful opportunities to connect with other neighbors and businesses." And a third, "Local Works has taken the initiative to engage the community to participate and volunteer for activities and functions open and relevant to all. To me, this substantially helps create a vibrant, up-and-coming, and therefore sustainable community." This tells us that Local Works is on the right track to accomplish its goals, that we are serving the community with programming that is appreciated by the citizens and business owners, and it validates that Local Works provides value to the work of the city and the council to help promote Wheat Ridge. As evidenced by the data and testimonials presented this evening, Local Works is indeed advancing Wheat Ridge as a vibrant and sustainable community, thanks to the generous support of the city. We respectfully request continued funding in 2019. Council members, you should have received in your packets our proposed budget and the accompanying narrative, which details how we plan to spend the requested funds and how these activities support the city's strategic priorities for 2019-2020. I do want to mention just a few highlights of our proposal. To provide a true picture of what it costs to offer these programs to the city of Wheat Ridge, we've calculated overhead at 23%, I wish it were the 10% of the Action Center, 23%, which is actually customary for nonprofits. Local Works requests support of these costs at varying percentages per program. Business and home loans, we are asking for a substantial increase here. This program has gained momentum this year, and we feel confident that we will close on additional loans in 2019. Ridge at 38 events, the most expensive programming that we offer. We're asking for $20,000 in additional funds to build upon the steady growth and success of this programming. The NRS reaffirmation, we've reduced this line by 50% as the work should be completed by next summer, and we haven't begun work on that yet. We can certainly adjust this once we learn what is requested of Local Works in this effort. Community engagement and communications. We are increasing this line item to support focused efforts on our community engagement and membership programs of 2019. And finally, the bid project management line item. We feel strongly that we need to instead first concentrate on re-engaging the Ridge at 38 Leadership Committee, so we've moved those funds into that category. On behalf of the staff, board, and volunteers, thank you, council members, for your investment in Local Works. By investing in Local Works, you are investing in Wheat Ridge.
Thank you, Krista. That was a very nice presentation, and I will open this up for questions from council. Ms. Hoppy.
Thank you for your presentation. Can you, if I remember correctly, the funds that, as they're requested, are program restricted. So when we look at your budget and it says building up business and home loans, and they're proposed for 2019's $80,000, then only business and home loans can draw on those monies. Is that correct?
Correct. And to further clarify, thank you, Councilmember Hoppy, we don't draw down those funds until we actually close on a loan.
So to kind of clarify, if there's a program and you don't end up delivering that program, then you don't request funding for that, correct?
Correct, yes. Our staff does a very good job, however, of trying to spend every dollar of the allocated funds so that we can best serve our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Thank you for your presentation, Krista. As you know, I'm a real supporter of local works. But I'm not very good at budgets. And I'm looking at this budget. I know you have 6 employees, but I don't see anything in this budget that will help me understand how much you're paying for wages. Tell me how that's in this budget.
For the employees?
Yeah.
Right, so thank you for your question, Councilmember Fitzgerald. If you take a look in the detailed narrative that accompanies the actual line item request, it's broken down, each section is broken down. You'll see, for example, if you look at Live Local Wheat Ridge on the first page, you'll see the first line is called Program and Volunteer Management. Most of that is going to the staff for their management of the program. You'll also see that overhead here, we're only requesting 35%, and we will offer the rest as in-kind. And some of that will include staff time, mostly mine. My staff is included as in-kind. Does that help? Thank you.
Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate it. But I did want some clarification on the local works building up business loans and the $80,000. You put it in the table that it would be business and home loans to the tune of $75,000, but it also says, note, Local Works proposes to suspend focus on its home investment loan program until the completion of the NRS reaffirmation. So will the majority of those monies be going towards business loans, or what would that look like?
Thank you, Councilmember Dozeman. Yes, based on the work that we have been doing toward our business loan program and the momentum shift that we're seeing there, we predict that we might be able to close on 2 or 3 additional loans for businesses. The home loan program has not seen as much momentum as of late. As well, it's my understanding that the NRS reaffirmation will be focusing on that. So we want to wait until we find out what the results of that analysis is and the work of the steering committee there. However, if we do have someone reach out to us who is interested in applying for a home improvement loan, we certainly will speak with them and encourage them to apply for that.
Yeah, because I noticed that you're asking for an additional $30,000 for that program, and we would, as far as this is concerned, we wouldn't really be focusing much on home improvements. It would just be businesses.
Correct. Again, however, if we received a tremendous influx of applications and interested homeowners, we would certainly address those rather than delay. So that section is still held for both of those improvement programs.
And are those decisions at the discretion of the Local Works Board?
Yes.
And how is that voted on? Can you just give us a little idea of how that process works?
Of course. So first, the Finance Committee serves as kind of the advisory committee for those loans. We do a lot of upfront work to prepare that presentation to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee, if they feel it's appropriate, will then recommend to our board to approve the loans. And then it is voted on at the upcoming board meeting following that presentation. And if it's passed by a quorum, then we proceed with the loan.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews.
Thank you. I have several questions. First off, I'd like to start out with the positives, the giveaways. My perception, even though I've not been close to Local Works this year, my perception is I see a great improvement in the way you're operating. In the past, my perception has been that Local Works has been predominantly aimed at being a political mover and shaker in the community. I've seen less of that, and I really appreciate it. I give you kudos for that. And I'm going to give you the same rough time I did on the previous Director, in that, this originally started out as being a self-sustaining effort after 5 years back in 2005, and it's not been that way. So I am a little picky on trying to put you on the hot seat as far as trying to justify your existence. And I know that's kind of nebulous sometimes with things like Ridge Fest, where it's not necessarily a true balance sheet, but we'll get to that in a little bit, but just keep that in the back of your head. I would also like to mention, like on page 4, where we see all the events listed in the one deal here, Criterion, Friday Night Live, what have you. We see total event cost, $215,000, request to the city, $160,000. That's kind of meaningless unless you show us a revenue column to go with that, so that we can actually see where the monies are coming from, which items may or may not be cost effective. So I would like to see that in future requests to the city, and possibly even as an amended submission before we actually get to voting on final budget numbers in the future. I would ask you too, are you going to continue, as the organization, going to continue to charge other city-funded commissions and boards for participation at places like the Criterion and Ridge Fest? Are they going to continue to charge them for a space to participate?
Okay. Do you want me to tackle
please.
each one as they go? Okay. So the first question, I'm not sure if it was question or more of a comment.
I forget.
I forget too. I appreciate.
What are you calling the first question or comment?
Well, let's go to the second question, which I know, which you called to attention that you need to have, and I absolutely agree, that's how we operate internally on our budgeting. We have revenues listed. So it's difficult reporting at this time of year because we've only done one major event so far. And I did report on the revenues in my presentation on that event. I'm more than happy to provide past years and a historical account of the revenue that we've brought in on all those other events. So I'm happy to forward that on to you.
Okay.
Not a problem. We do have that all recorded. After each event, we do a return on investment report, so we do have that information. And you'll see that we've been steadily increasing our revenue for those events. To mention, again, you'll see that the request to the city for those large-scale events is considerably less than what it takes to put on the events. And so we're, as a staff, finding ways to be more creative with raising funds, whether it's through increased sponsorships, which we've been successful at so far, increasing individual contributions, finding ways for corporations to partner with us that aren't tied to events. So we're really examining that with our fund development committee, and with my background in fundraising, they know I expect a lot. So we'll be putting together a hefty plan around that. And 3, your third question was?
Are you going to continue to charge other city-funded commissions and boards to participate in these events?
So I think what you are asking, and forgive me if I misunderstand, is are you referring to the vendor booth spaces?
Yeah.
Yes.
$500.
Right. So we've already discussed as a staff and have already begun to offer those booth spaces at no cost.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Very much. That's why I'm saying I see a lot of changes I'm appreciative of.
Yeah, we are all partners in this community.
Okay. Can you justify a little bit asking for an increased outlay, for instance, on Rigid 38 of 14%? Yeah.
Which one are you on?
On your Local Works proposed 2019 budget, you're going from, on the Rigid 38th events, you're increasing your request from 140,000 to 160.
Right.
And that's 14% thereabouts. Can you explain why? I don't know yet if our whole city budget's going to increase by 14%. So this all has to tie together someday.
Absolutely. Well, in the interest of continuing to grow and expand those programs, that's what it will cost to do some of the things that we already have in mind to make those events larger, attract more community members, both from Wheat Ridge and outside, as well as offer a better experience. We always do a debrief on all of our events. We survey the attendees, we survey the volunteers, and based on the feedback that we've been receiving, we have brainstormed ideas that will address those desires. Now, of course, if we can't afford to do those expansions and improvements next year, we'll have to either find a way to raise funds for them or delay that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Your 2018 adopted budget versus 28 estimated has gone from 528 to 469. Can you tell us what's, I'm happy to see it go down, but can you tell us why that's dropped about $60,000?
Yes. So some of the areas that were that were allocated funding, we've either not been asked to work on those areas, or we, with the changing of staff transitions, namely myself coming on board, we haven't really been able to implement some of those. So, for example, if you look at, I think the main ones were the tours. We were estimating $10,000 less to be spent there because we simply won't have the staff power for the remaining of this year to put together multiple tours. So we're going to focus on the one. And again, we are already in conversations with some of the developers and having, at the start of next year, a really neat tour that will focus on those large-scale developments in the city. The other area, I believe, if you look down on the NRS reaffirmation, we've cut that in half, again, because we've not been asked by the city to do any work on that yet. And it's my understanding that perhaps the steering committee will be doing a lot of the work that was originally anticipated that Local Works would assist with. So we're in a holding pattern there so we haven't spent any money there, but we left half in there just in case you all need our support. The other area, I think those were the main ones. Excuse me, which? Live Local. Oh yes, and the Live Local, right. So those events right now, we've found really great ways to save costs on those. Again, next year we really hope to grow that program and bring in more exciting, perhaps more expensive partners without giving too much away. We've got some great ideas about maybe bringing in some speakers and things that might draw a larger crowd from the community for those events.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Davis.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, and thank you all for your work. Just a couple comments that I just want to say in general, not as much questions, but you know, I do see your budget, and I do support the work you all do. I will say that year in and year out, I have gotten many comments about the postcard you all do. I have some folks that are pretty heavy into marketing, and they've commented on what a good job that you all do, and actually outside of Wheat Ridge, because I know you guys mail to kind of some bordering zip code areas, and they're like, wow, that's pretty impressive, and who does this for you guys, because that's pretty cool. And so hats off. And so good job on that. And I also want to comment, because I try to go to all these events, and the other thing I want to say is it does pull in some folks outside of Wheat Ridge, and I think that is good to see. And again, I also get comments from that working throughout SCL and other sites and stuff. Folks, I see folks at, if it be St. Joe's or up north, and people will be like, oh yeah, I went to that at 38th. Wow, things are changing a bit over there, and it's neat to see. So I do think the activity there is nice to see, and it is being talked about a little bit more. I think that being said, I appreciate the work being done, and I understand that, to make change and those types of things, sometimes expenses have to go up, and I'm glad to hear you're good at fundraising, because I think that in some cases, it's hard to justify increasing a budget if our overall city budget, if we're worried about perhaps, what's going on over at Youngsfield and that Walmart, and not getting some of our tax-generating places sitting empty, to be able to justify some increases here when we might not be seeing tax-generating revenues. So it's not necessarily to say we don't support it. It's just that you have to kind of balance it more so. So we would support other events. Now, that being said, I also see that as a city, we might ask for your support in things such as helping us with a 50th anniversary gala, which, if that's something that we're going to ask you to do, it's offsetting the cost that maybe the city, we'd be spending it here at the city to help us do. So I think those are things to see, because I see you budgeted $10,000 to help in that. And if that's not something you'd be budgeting it for, that somehow it might be coming through a city as a city expense. So, I do see things like that as well. So, thank you for your work. Thank you. I think it's a detailed explanation. I think that you provide a lot of information that for the money we provide, and so just thank you for the work.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I do want to I remembered the first question that you had asked earlier, and it was a comment really about way back in 2005 when Local Works 2020, Wheatridge 2020 was formed, and it was written in there that this organization was meant to be self-sustaining after a number of years, and we have passed that number of years. So again, and I believe that's a reason why I was hired on in this role, is again due to my, as I was told, thinking outside of the box and fundraising expertise. And you can expect to see from me a lot of ideas, a lot of new ways, as I said before, to help increase that contributed revenue so that we can be less reliant on the city. And just to speak to your comment, Councilmember Davis, about if you would need to focus, cut some of our funding because you needed to focus on some areas that weren't developing as quickly as you would like and generating that tax base. We're also approaching those new developers and finding ways to get more support from them. So hopefully, if that were to happen, we could offset the loss here with our partnerships with those business owners.
Thank you. Additional questions? Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So with respect to the marketing and positioning tours, what is the outcomes from that activity? How do you measure success with respect to those tours?
So those statistics I don't have available with me this evening. I'm happy to send them your way. I would expect and hope that they would trigger increased interest in folks coming here to spend their money here. And I would hope that we would see an increase in folks also interested in either renting or living here. And I would expect to see increased attendance at our events. But we certainly can look into that and try to provide that for you.
Thank you. And then you'd mentioned that you had approximately 12,000 in beer ticket sales, I believe, at the Criterium. Mm-hmm. And that's, I guess, sort of hits at the heart of one of my concerns, because those beers are being sold in front of businesses whose livelihood is based on selling beer. And so what can be done to ensure that the businesses along 38th are actually benefiting from these activities? As we look at the expense that's being requested of the Ridge at 38th events, it's $160,000. That's $4.5 million in sales tax that has to be, or $4.5 million in revenue that has to be, generated in order to create that 160. So how can we ensure that the businesses along 38th are the primary recipients of that activity?
Right. Thank you very much. We are exploring a number of different ways to get that data. First of all, we're talking up front with those business owners who oftentimes report that they're experiencing an increase in sales on those days. And it may not be for beer necessarily, but a lot of the racers, after they're finished, go and get a bite to eat with their family members if our food trucks aren't offering, enough to fill them. We also have invited those business owners to be part of the planning committee for those events so that they can really have a voice and help us brainstorm on ways to not only collect the data. So we have received data over the years from these business owners that they are seeing an increase in sales, but I'd like to have more accurate tracking of that, and perhaps they're not seeing increase of sales on that day, but I'd love it if there were some sort of way that we could track if there was a giveaway to everybody who attended who are seeing, oh, Colorado Plus, that looks great. I don't have time to go there today, but I'm going to take this coupon that I received and come back within the year, and hopefully we can track that there will be increased attendance and sales at these businesses, not only the eating establishments, but all of them, because the business owners are participating with us to help promote their businesses as well as track it back.
Yeah, thank you. And I guess, what was my other question? Hold on. I lost my train of thought, but I guess as it relates to the positioning tours and whatnot, if real estate agents or mortgage lenders or other individuals involved in the renting and sale of properties benefit from that, I'd like to see them ponying up more to participate in that, because if you had 5 real estate agents ponying up $4,500, that would cover that expense. And so I'd like to see us move towards making sure that these costs are in some way being either tracked as far as the metrics and the outcomes, but also making sure that we're not giving away the farm, so to speak, because I want to make sure that we have a good bang for our buck as far as the money that we're spending. And that goes back to, like with the Action Center, the percentage of their budget that we're putting in is relatively small, whereas with Local Works, the city of Wheat Ridge is putting in about 80%, and that's averaged out over the past number of years. So do you have any kind of plan or strategy relative to reducing that 80% dependence on the city?
Yes, as I mentioned earlier, we are with our Fund Development Committee exploring ways to increase our contributed revenue in all sorts of ways. Certainly, we're already getting to work on increasing our sponsorships. We want to be a little bit more sophisticated than we've been in the past with this. And again, bringing in my expertise in that area, I hope will help with that. So offering business owners, even outside of Wheat Ridge, an opportunity to sponsor an event or program, having opportunities to support programs and not just events. We are gearing up for an incredible Colorado Gives Day and hopefully do a year-end appeal for the entire month of December that will help raise donations from individuals. We also are doing a great job in negotiating support that is a combination of cash as well as in kind. And our staff are really developing wonderful partnerships with prospective new supporters and have these open conversations with them. So I hope that this time next year, we can report a better picture of our contributed income, because that's something that's very important to me and a goal that I've set for myself.
Thank you. Those all sound like excellent directions to go in. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Dozeman.
Thank you. So I just want to preface my comments and questions with the fact that I really appreciate Local Works and what you contribute to the community. I do believe that you are a catalyst for the community and that you do a great job at putting on events and supporting our community. But I do have a few more questions as far as and this might be better answered by Patrick, is Local Works throwing the gala on behalf of the city, or are we going to be contributing additional funds for that? And then I also see a line item for $10,000 for 50th anniversary events. So I just wanted to.
It would be in partnership with the city, so there'll be some funding also in the city's general fund budget for those events.
Okay, can you tell me a little bit about what that $10,000 would go
Sure,
towards for the 50th?
absolutely. So 3 of us on staff, half of our staff, are actually part of the steering committee to plan not only the 50th anniversary celebration, but the gala. So the bulk of, from what we understand right now, the bulk of that money will be not only staff time, but I imagine we'll be assisting with promotion. And, again, we've only had one meeting so far with that steering committee, so it's yet to be seen. But we've already discussed with them about ways to leverage the work that we're doing in the events and activities that we're doing planned for next year, and leverage that with helping to promote the 50th anniversary. So there's probably going to be a little bit of our expenses that are for our programs that are connected to spreading the word about 50th anniversary. Again, this remains to be seen, but you'll see that $10,000 was what we were awarded this past year, and so we assume that that'll be the same amount for next year.
So my next question is if you could give a breakdown of the costs associated with the Live Local events, because I noticed that you're asking for $40,000, and just from an outsider's point of view, it looks like those events are relatively low cost, just because the businesses seem to sponsor or host as opposed to you guys outputting money. So if you could maybe clarify that a little bit.
Absolutely. So again, the bulk of it goes towards staff time to do the work that it takes to promote the events, design the events, and execute the events. We also do a lot of advertising and promotion in printed materials, as you see there. And then all of these events usually have associated with them some sort of event cost, whether we're serving refreshments, we are having giveaways, whatever. It depends on the event itself. So as I said earlier, we are looking to grow that program and put a little bit more focus on both the active and the harvest programs next year.
Okay. Sorry.
Mr. Urban?
Go ahead, Mr. Urban, and then I'll
Urban?
follow up with some more.
In the in-kind support assumptions, there's a reference to city staff time to assist with Rigid 38th events, day of volunteers needed. So is that, it's maybe a question for Patrick, are we providing comp time for staff to volunteer at those events, or is it more police services in that event?
A little both. We've had a hard time getting enough volunteers for some of the events, so we have been in the last couple of years offering some comp time for those employees who did volunteer, but it's very, very small amount. Most of that is in kind is for the police, because we don't charge back the police department for the security services, and public works if they have to close streets or clean up afterwards. So it's mainly that kind of stuff.
Okay. And then it indicates police presence needed at the Criterium, Ridge Fest, the Trunk or Treat, and the holiday celebration. But in my attendance at some of the Friday night movie nights, there was no police presence, and in following up on it, there was no plan to have police presence, but yet we had over 1,000 people in attendance without any kind of plan relative to that security need, and that there was obviously a lot of things going on in that event that posed potential security concerns. So what is the security protocol or the process to go through to decide which events get a police presence versus ones that do not?
Essentially, it's been up to the police department to decide which events they want to have presence at. They have also made it clear that if there were any issues that were to arise, that clearly we know to contact them. Staff is on hand at all of those events to monitor the crowd, to contact me, the police if needed. So we're monitoring it in a different way to control any of that.
Thank you.
Ms. Dozeman.
Are you having a 2019 Wheaties Academy?
We are not. It'll be an off year.
Okay. So those costs aren't associated with this budget then?
Right.
Okay. And then my next question is I just want to have some clarification. So line item 721, communications, education, outreach to the tune of $40,000. And then community engagement and communications, you're asking for $50,000, which is an increase of $20,000 from last year. And then you also have 38th Avenue marketing materials, $30,000, and 38th Avenue digital media support for $10,000. So that's a total of $130,000 allocated towards communications and marketing. So one of my biggest concerns with some of the events as a participant and a resident within the community these last few years is that it almost seems as if the participation or the attendance rate has grown beyond the capacity of what we're capable of hosting. Like my family and I waited in line for an hour and a half to get on the hayride, and there were like 5 or 6 groups of people behind us, and then they had to rope it off. There was a list, like we were 3 hours onto the list for seeing Santa. And because we waited so long in the majority of the lines, we didn't have the opportunity to go, enjoy any of the other surrounding events. And I also happened to have a booth at Ridgefest with a local business, and I noticed that we were capturing over 50% of the addresses that were outside of Wheat Ridge. And so one of my concerns is that we're really drawing more from outside of our community as opposed to residents within our community. And, it's not that I don't want that to happen, but it's just the fact that maybe our residents aren't showing up because so many other residents are. I've also participated in Trunk or Treat where every single year for the last 3 years, we run out of candy within an hour and a half in. People are making runs to Costco. And I just don't know if some of these events are sustainable and how you plan to address that. And this increase of costs for marketing and communication, that's automatically going to draw from outside of Wheat Ridge. So can you maybe address some of those?
Absolutely, and that is those are all the same concerns that we discuss internally with staff as well as board when we evaluate strategic planning for the next year. And we've asked that same question. Do we want to grow this event? Do we have the resources to grow the event? Does Wheat Ridge have the resources to sustain this event? Or have we hit our plateau on this event? And, so that's why you'll see the increase in costs for the Ridge at 38 events, specifically Trunk or Treat. We have in our budget more candy. So we've heard from attendees like yourself about not only the positive but the areas for improvement for all of these events, and we are trying to adjust our budget to accommodate those improvements.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
I think this is probably more for Patrick, but one thing I would like to see in our budgets is that if we've got in-kind expenses from the city, for instance, police, public works, somewhere here on this budget or in one place, I would like to see whatever expenses the city is comping, because in effect, we're not really showing a true city contribution to local works or to any, including Carnation Festival, any of the other activities that we support. So somewhere here down in the summary, I would like to see public works contribution, PD contributions, city staff comp time, and a little summary of that. Let's just say it's $100,000. I mean, maybe if you want to separate it out from like this 564,000, we can put a corresponding minus in there. But at some point in time, I would like to see the total number of dollars for all of these activities, not just local works. Because otherwise we go into our 2019 budget and we get a 3-ring binder that's 2 inches thick, and for us to bring all that stuff forward and try and see what a total expenditure is unwieldy. And at some point in time, I know there's got to be a line item somewhere for it in each of the individual department budgets.
There is.
So, just
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy?
Again, thank you for your presentation. One thing that I kind of want to just share, and it's not, I know people in this room have heard this before, but for others out there, some of the stuff that formerly known as Wheat Ridge 2020 Local Works does for our community, are things that start with a really small stone or pebble in the lake. And it starts with my friend who's a real estate agent who takes the Realtor tour and has a tour around Wheat Ridge. And then when my husband and I are looking for places to move our business and our home to, he says, hey, check out Wheat Ridge. Well, I had driven through Wheat Ridge in 2010, and it wasn't looking so great on 38th Avenue. The majority of the businesses were for sale or for lease, and they were boarded up, or they were, like my building, a weed patch with a half-done roof. And my real estate agent said, well, look, what you really need to look at is that they've got this NRS that they've done, and they're really looking at moving forward. That started at a Realtor tour. The Realtor tour, and then we bought our building, and we were participants in the Building Up business loan, which was really important for us to be able to get that very undone, expensive project done, which we have since then now already paid off a long time ago. But from that, then I was asked to be on the board of directors. And so then I was on the board of directors, and I was able to engage into the community and really dive in deep. And that's where myself and a couple other people started Live Local, and Live Local being an amazing part of our community right now. And that's where I learned and met and grew with a lot of people in the community that I work with on a daily basis now that aren't necessarily my neighbors, and so I wouldn't have necessarily been able to dive into those relationships with them. And so I just want to say that I personally really appreciate all the work that you do, because I have a personal story that attaches to it, but I see how that could happen to lots of people. And so thank you very much, you guys.
Ms. Dozeman.
So I just have one last comment to kind of piggyback on Janice's comments. I too have personally benefited from Local Works and Wheaties Academy, and I see that a lot of those graduates from Wheaties Academy and those that get involved, they stay involved. And I think that that is really the bread and butter of our community, is those programs that engage our residents and keep them engaged and have them involved for, an extended amount of time. So I just want to thank you for that hard work, and I do appreciate everything that you do. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis, I'd like to kind of bring us sort of to a close, but I had a couple of questions for you. When I look at this budget, is this net of other revenue that you receive during the year as part of the events or other revenue streams, or is it gross? So does this get reduced?
Yes.
This sort of assumes that we're paying a whole bill and you've got revenue coming in?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, these are all gross figures that we're reporting so far, but we are going to prepare that column with the revenue, and we will do gross and balance. We'll have the total expenses. So you really do get a true picture of how much it takes to put on these events.
Exactly.
So we'll have the net included as well.
That sort of segues to my next question. Do you provide an audited or a reviewed financial statement on an annual basis?
Yes, we do. We just completed ours this month. We're due to receive it any day now.
Okay, and you forward that to city staff?
Absolutely, and we always post those on our website.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay,
Just a
we've been here an hour, so I'd like to.
Could you make sure that does show up? Because about 6 months ago, I tried to find it, and it was a blank page.
The whole page? Excuse me.
There's just, you couldn't get to, all what you were showing was your tax return, but
Sure, yeah.
nothing.
So the last 990 audit that we completed was for 18 months. So we had it, again, with the transition as well. We switched from our fiscal year is now on a calendar year, so that's probably why you didn't find a most recent one. But again, we're supposed to receive any day the draft from our auditors.
Thank you. Well, I'd like to thank you very much for a very nice presentation. You guys do great work in our community, and I look forward to some more of your events.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, we will move to item number 3 on our agenda. This is body-worn cameras. And we have Division Commander Lorenz. Have I got that? Did I get that right? Deputy. Oh, God, I tell you.
I don't know. Division chief.
Okay. 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 Continue. Turn your microphone on.
There we go. We're on. We just have an update on body-worn cameras. I think you've got the staff report. As you're probably aware, our body-worn camera program began about 2015 when we started a pilot program. And that pilot program is still in effect. We have our traffic officers wear those. Now, our traffic team had been rolled back into patrol in the last year due to staffing issues, but those officers are still wearing those body cameras. You know, as you may recall, we applied for a grant and we were turned down, and that was part of the program was to look for working together with other agencies. We were able to find a partner in Golden. We applied in April, a second time, April of 2017. And this request has been approved, as you know. We're still working to, we've just completed the final step of everything we needed to do. We have 7 different steps that had to be accomplished. The last one is the approval of the Memorandum of Understanding, which you will see next week at council meeting. That is the agreement between the Jefferson County District Attorney's Office, the 1st Judicial District, and the Golden Police Department. Both of those agencies have already signed off on it. And once we get ours signed off, we can move forward with the purchasing part of it. So I know it has seemed like a long time, because it has since 2015, but you know, until about April of 17 is when we got on the road of doing this. And there's a lot of requirements these days to do a federal grant, a lot of reporting processes that have to be done. And we have to comply very specifically with reporting monthly on the federal website, and the federal website was down for several months in there, but everything seems to be on the road. We have sent all our personnel that are involved in this program, the administration of this program, to specific training, and we're pretty much ready to go. So I think the chief's estimate as to when we'll be able to actually get cameras will be towards the end of this year or early in 2019.
Thank you. Questions from council? Mr. Urban.
I appreciate your efforts here, so far to date as it relates to trying to implement this, and I think that body-worn cameras both protects the officer as well as the individual involved in an incident and what have you. I guess some of my questions relate to determining when to record, or recording in private residences, or dealing with those types of sensitive issues. That you're indicating that you're developing a curriculum, but how much of that curriculum are we developing ourselves, or are we leveraging off of existing programs to determine our policies relative to body-worn cameras?
Mostly from other agencies. It is recommendations and specifics from the 1st Judicial District. So they let us know what kinds of information can be released, and that's really the complicated part of this that we don't really think of as, you know, all of the video that is collected, and then what do you do with it, and how long do you store it, and who gets to see it, and can you just make a public request for that, and can that be released? And so we have to train experts within the department to be able to distribute that. And it takes a lot of time. There's still some redaction that occurs during that process, so we have to review it again. Another thing that I hadn't really thought about was, do officers get to review their video before they write their reports? And the DA's office wants that done. Well, now we would be reviewing video of what already happened in the day, so we're kind of doubling the time that officers are involved in writing their reports.
Mhm.
So there's a lot to it, and obviously we want to do it right, and we want to work with the First Judicial District to do things right. And
I guess to that point, when you're talking about the video has a very clear delineation of exactly what happened, but then the report is always very somewhat summarized in the sense that it's not going through every syllable that the person used. But so as far as that discrepancy between the report and what's provided in the video, why can't the video just be attached to the report and say "see attached" versus having to summarize and then create some sort of discrepancy between the report and the video?
I guess because reporting is the way that we do, we file cases, that we keep a record of the events that have gone. I don't think people want to see all of the video in real time to find out what happened. I think it has to be summarized to some degree.
Do you see any kind of issues arise when there's a discrepancy between the report and what's happening in the video? Or
certainly could be, absolutely. And I think that's the district attorney's recommendation, is for officers to review that before they write their report, so that they can make sure that they're giving an accurate depiction of what happened.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Additional questions? Looks like you covered all the bases.
That's great.
All right.
So let me just throw in a plug for National Night Out. It's tomorrow night, right here in Hayward Park, 4 o'clock till 7. Food, fun, crime prevention. What more could you ask for, right?
Be there. Thanks you very much. Okay. We good to keep going? We're good to keep going. Would you like to give us a 2018 budget update?
Sure, I would. Thank you. I was trying to pull up the PowerPoint presentation. I had one, but if it's okay, if you just want me to move forward, I will just verbally speak to it. You have my report in your packet. Just see here. So I'll just kind of give you some brief highlights and open up the floor for any questions. Overall, our revenue picture is looking fairly strong for 2018, at least through June. If you compare 2017 to 2018 revenues, we're up about 4.4% in all total general fund revenues, which is good. The biggest increase over last year is in use taxes, so our building use tax, auto use tax, and just general professional use tax. Majority of that is building use tax. We've had we continue to have significant growth in development in the city, both commercial and retail, which is generating most of that revenue. Then also our services revenue, that's mainly for same thing for our increase in commercial and residential development for plan review fees. Is primarily the reason for that. That is up. Our sales tax is down compared to last year. As you all remember, Walmart did close last year, July 7th. So first 6 months of this year is minus the amount of revenue that Walmart generally brings in. But if you do back that closure of Walmart out, our sales tax is actually so it's down 1.9%, but if you pull out that closure of Walmart, sales tax is actually up 5.8% over last year, which is a good sign that the overall economy in Wheat Ridge is still doing well. And there was a discussion or a comment made on one of the previous presentations about some of the major, well, Walmart being one of them, being closed, and what's the time frame on that? And I can answer any questions. A few questions on that to give you a little bit of hint of what's going on there. Expenses are also quite a bit down compared to what we expected to spend by this time of the year. So we're at about 86% of prorated expenditures. So about 2.4 million below what we'd normally spend by this time of the year. I haven't done a deep dive to figure out exactly what that's coming from. I think a lot of it is some staffing shortages we've had across the city. And I think generally most of it's from that. And let's see. Let me pull up my presentation. I can pull it up here. I can't pull it up on the screen because I had some other items that aren't in my memo I wanted to share. Let's see. Okay. So when we're talking about ending fund balance, I think that's what most of you might be interested in. How do our revenue projections and expenditures impact how much money we have in our fund balance? When the budget was adopted for 2018, we were projecting that we were going to have a beginning fund balance of about 10.7 million. It was actually 13.8 million once we were able to close out 2017. And as you remember, last year we received significant amount of revenues, a good chunk from the hailstorm, the revenues that come from providing services to support mainly our building department. In revenues, we projected about 34 million at the beginning of this year. We're projecting, right now we're right in the middle of our budget process for 2019, so some of these numbers are still projections, but we're projecting just over 34.2 million in revenue, so a little bit of increase compared to what we thought we would receive this year. And then expenditures, we budgeted about 37.3 million for this year. The initial estimates that we've put together, we're only estimating to spend about 35.6 million this year. So in the end, in the end of 2018, we're projecting to have an ending fund balance at the end of the year of about $12.3 million. That $12.3 million is the total fund balance, but there's a portion of that's restricted, has to be used for specific uses. 3% is for our Tabor reserve, which is required by state law. That's about $1.2 million. We have about $200,000 of PEG fee revenues. That's the revenues that we receive from if you have Comcast, you pay, I think it's 50 cents a month, and those funds have to be used for the operation of our Channel 8 system, all the cameras in this room and such. We keep that's in a restricted fund balance. Then the Fruitdale project, although we did receive repayment of $1.5 million of our loan for that project, several months ago, they still have an outstanding loan of just over $1 million, so that's shows up in our restricted fund balance. So our unrestricted fund balance we're projecting at the end of this year will be just under $10 million, which is almost a 30% reserve. So it's pretty high, which is a good thing. We did receive direction from City Council to spend a portion of those funds, I believe, on the green project on 38th Avenue. So we're looking at that and budgeting those funds in 2019. So a good chunk of that fund balance will come down because of that. So just kind of in general, our sales tax revenues are down again about 2%. That equates to about $143,000. But again, that's because of the closure of Walmart. Use tax revenues are the largest increase of about 25%. That's about $450,000. And our total general fund revenues, as I mentioned, are up about 4.4%, which is just over $600,000. So I will open it up for any questions that you may have.
Any questions, Ms. Hoppy?
I believe I read in here that the Walmart closed in July.
July 7th of 2017.
So, so the second half of our year will be mostly looking at apples to apples when it comes
Correct.
to sales tax?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it relates to our new outsourcing of the building department, how has that benefited or impacted the budget?
You know, again, as I mentioned, our expenditures are not as high as I expected through the end of June at this point. I'm not sure if that has something to do with it, and I haven't had time to dive down into that deeper. But when we bring back the budget, 2019 budget presentation in September, I'll probably have more details on that for you.
Thank you.
Additional questions?
Just real briefly to respond to a question that was brought up earlier, a comment about some unknown future revenue sources potentially. You know, we have, obviously the Walmart closure. We have a few other large projects that are coming online. The good news is the Regency is working very diligently to backfill the Walmart, and they have 4 national tenants that they plan to backfill that site with. The timing of that, which I reached out to them because we're trying to estimate revenues, they're potentially looking at September or October of next year that those stores will be open. So I'm a pretty conservative estimator and budgeter, so I'm probably not going to include any revenues from those backfilled stores in the 2019 budget just because we don't know yet for sure. But if they do come online, it will be a significant amount of money. It'll be more than the Walmart was generating. So that will be kind of icing on the cake next year when those come in. And there's several projects similar to that. The Kipling Ridge site, that vacant pad that's still left there next to Starbucks, they're in the same situation. They're working with a tenant, which could open about the same time next year. But to be conservative, we're not going to estimate those revenues. And the Kipling Ridge project, or the Wheat Ridge Corners project, most of those tenants will be on. A good chunk of them will be on this year still, but all of them should be on by next year. So we have some good numbers from the developer on what those tenants are potentially going to generate in sales tax, and we are factoring those revenues into next year's budget.
Any additional questions or comments?
On what? On the Wheat Ridge Corners? Walmart. All I can say is they're national tenants, sales tax generators. They don't have signed contracts yet, so I'm been sworn to secrecy. I think Janelle might have.
All right, Janelle.
I don't know anything and I haven't looked at it in detail yet, but when I leave here tonight, I'm going to go back in there and sign the Mylars for that Walmart thing. And the mayor signed them, and those are going to be recorded tomorrow. It's just the building plans, so that's
for the Hacienda, Colorado.
They were?
Yes.
Oh.
Hacienda, Colorado, not the backfill in the Walmart.
Oh, that's what Tammy told me. Never mind.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Goff. We have under item number 5, broadband and Tabor excess revenue ballot questions.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. We've had a couple discussions on this at previous study sessions, and there was interest in putting a question on the 2018 November ballot to ask voters to allow the city to potentially work with private sector or public-private venture or the city on their own, provide telecommunication services in the future. Senate Bill 152 basically prohibits local governments from doing that unless you ask your voters to allow the municipality to do that. So we put a draft resolution in here with a ballot question, and it's a question in one of your last packets we provided you with, I think, 92 different questions from across the state that have been used. Most of them are exactly the same. A few of them have changed the language just a little bit. I think I pulled this one from, I can't remember what city we used this question, but This is a question we would recommend. Shall the city of Wheat Ridge, without increasing taxes by this measure and to restore local authority that was denied to local governments by the Colorado General Assembly and foster a more competitive marketplace, be authorized to provide high-speed internet, including improved high bandwidth services based on new technologies, telecommunication services, and/or cable television services to residents, businesses, schools, libraries, nonprofit entities, and other users of such services either directly or indirectly with public or private sector partners as is expressly permitted by Article 27, Title 29 of the Colorado Revised Statutes. So, any comments or questions about that question or that proposed ballot question?
Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the phrase "based on new technology" is somewhat ambiguous, and so are we saying that we're going to provide bandwidth based on new and different technology than what is otherwise being provided today by the current providers? Or I think it could just be left alone to say that we're going to be providing high bandwidth services, but to say we're providing it based on new technologies, that may not...
Yeah, it might be a little misleading that...
that Wheat Ridge has somehow come up with a...
Yep, that's a good point. Yeah, I agree.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
I was just going to say I like this language, and I agree that it's a little misleading, but I do like the question. It's less legal than a lot of versions, and I think people will understand this.
Additional questions, comments? Mr. Urban?
Thank you. Just looking at some of the requirements for a SB 152 ballot question, it says that obviously this is a single subject. This does include the nature of the proposed services, and it describes who the intended subscribers are, residents. But the only thing I'm not quite clear on is how does it describe the role that local government will have in providing these services?
Yeah, and that we just don't know today. I think that there could be, I mean, it kind of gives you a couple options that, this could be, service could be provided directly from the city or indirectly, maybe through a private partner or, with public or private sector partners. I think, it's just way too soon to give a detailed plan of how those services would be provided in this initial ballot question.
I guess if Jerry Dahl is reviewing it, that's fine, but in my research, these are some of the litmus tests for this ballot question, that it has to describe how we're going to be providing the service. Even though I understand we're not intending to provide it at this time, we still have to somehow elucidate how we would provide that.
I think that language covers that. I'll double check with Dahl, but the language, because again, the 92 questions across the state use this exact same language. So I think it's been tested, but I think the language that says such services either directly or indirectly with public or private sector partners, I think covers that, but I can double check on that.
Thank you.
Do we have a consensus on council to move this forward? We do. Thank you.
Is everybody okay removing that language that Zach mentioned? Yes. Okay. Great, thank you. And then the second ballot question is the Tabor revenue overage issue that we've discussed several times with you. We provided two different examples for you and two different resolutions. One has specific percentages of how the money would be shared back to the 4 2E projects, and one is just general, that the money would be used for the 4 specific 2E projects, not broken down by any percentage. I did share these with Dee Weiser, who's with Butler and Snow, who's been advising us on this. He's a Tabor expert in the state, and he said he would recommend the first option that does not break it down by certain percentages, because he thinks if you did go with that option, if you break it down by certain percentages, it's very difficult to enforce and comply with in the future. People may question that. You'd have to do a lot of accounting and tracking to show that you indeed used 12% of that on Anderson Park improvements and 21% on Wadsworth. And, needs may change over the next couple of years, and you may want to just keep it more general that the full 400 and some $1,000 will just be used on the forward projects.
Ms. Hoppy.
I actually feel like the one without the percentages reads more clearly also, and it has a better message than the one with the percentages. And so I'm in support of the question without the percentages.
Thank you. Additional comments? Mr. Matthews.
Same, that I think gives us more flexibility. If you got to spend 12,000 of it on, let's just say, a project, and it happens to, God forbid, come in under budget, then you've got an excess over there, and what do you do with it? I'd rather be able to apply it to projects that are over budget and not have to add more scope of work just to spend money.
Thank you. Additional comments? Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As it relates to I think that the first question would be better than the second one. But as far as explaining or somehow making it clear that this isn't extending the life of the half-a-cent sales tax. It's just allowing us to expend the existing amounts. And so when it says, and to continue to collect the tax at the 0.5 rate and expend said revenues, one could read that to say we're going to allow this tax increase to go into perpetuity. If there was some disclaimer out there, say to not exceeding the time frame that originally was allotted for this. That may be looking at it too closely.
No, I had that same thought, Zach. I think that's key, that maybe we put some language in there that says that this still expires in 20, the date, whatever the date is, I can't remember, 12 years from 2016.
If someone isn't paying attention, they pull up their ballot and say, so you asked for the tax increase, now you want to continue it without knowing the background.
We could slip a couple words or phrase in there that says this still terminates according to the original ballot question or something like that, yeah. Without making it too confusing.
Right.
So under the same terms and conditions as the original ballot language or something
I agree
like
with that, yep.
Okay. Good. Additional comments or questions? Then do we have consensus to use the first one on attachment number 2 with additional language that it would be under the same terms and conditions as the original 2E authorization? Does it look okay to everybody? We have consensus on that?
Great, thank you.
There?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. That will conclude item number 5. Moving right on to item number 6, which is staff reports, unless you're still typing, and then we can.
Yeah, I don't have anything. Maybe Zach wants to say something too. I'm sure he'll join on, but Zach and I attended the Friends and Family event at Lucky's Market this evening, and they ran out of parking in 12 minutes. So if you want to get there, parking's going to be a challenge, I think, for a few months. That store, it was packed. So very excited. Yeah. Yeah, and
I tried to go and there was no parking.
They called it family and friends, but I think people were just driving by and saw the cars, and they were just coming in. Yeah, this was a soft opening. So, but just a reminder, the bacon cutting. It's not a ribbon cutting. They're calling it a bacon cutting. Is Wednesday at 10. So you're all invited to that if you can make it. So.
When's the bacon eating?
I know. Did you smell it? There was. It's a beautiful store, so they did a great job. The site might look a little messy still. There's dirt and stuff on the sides, but they were very anxious to get the store open. So
Great. All right, thank you. We will go to elected officials reports. I'll see a show of hands if you'd like to say. Ms. Dozman.
Well, I know Ms. Dozman is probably going to talk about this also with Carnation Festival this coming weekend, and she'll have more details for you. And I I'm super disappointed because I won't be here this weekend, and it'll be the first one since I moved into this community that I've missed. But I'll be moving my daughter into college in Washington, so. Anyways, I hope everybody goes and enjoys the festival, and I know that the board, which Ms. Dozman is on, has been working their tail off for this, and so I really appreciate all of your guys' work, and thank you.
Thank you. That was going to be my report. I invite everyone down to Anderson Park off of 44th and Field to enjoy our 49th annual celebration of the incorporation of Wheat Ridge. We have fireworks both nights. We have food vendors, craft vendors, merchant vendors. We have a huge carnival with carnival food. And we also have the parade Saturday morning along 38th Avenue starting at 9:30 a.m. So I just invite you to come on down and come see me.
Thank you. Ms. Hoppy?
We forgot to mention also the pancake breakfast at the Grange. Before you hit the parade, go on over and have some delicious pancake breakfast.
At what time does that open up?
7.
6, 7? Okay, thank you. Additional items from council. Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and definitely had a great time earlier this evening touring the new Lucky store, and brought my daughter with me, and she had a great time. And I've never seen a fully stocked grocery store. You go to a grocery store and they have things, but there was no space on the shelf. It was all just lined up perfectly. So definitely did a lot of great work. But I also want to bring up there was a young woman who was tragically murdered last week in Wheat Ridge as a result of a domestic violence situation, and her family's having some trouble relative to their expenses in dealing with this tragic situation. So her name is Nicole Lindsay, and she has a GoFundMe page set up, or her family has a GoFundMe page set up to help cover some of those expenses. And I'd encourage folks to take action to support the family tree and their work in domestic violence, but also if you're able to contribute to Nicole Lindsay's fund and help their family in the time of need. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other additional staff, or I guess we're on elected officials reports. Ms. Shaver.
This is just a community thing. I attended Saturday night a performance of The Music Man here in Wheat Ridge at the Colorado Axe Theater. It is on the frontage road west of Medved, and the Colorado Axe is a nonprofit children's theater organization. They had a few adults in this one. That plays a pretty heavy lift, but it was very well done. And they also are having performances this Friday and Saturday night. I know that conflicts with the Carnation Festival, but if one of those nights you're not going to the festival, you might want to take in that play. And if you look at their website, it's Colorado ACTS, and they may have a 2:00 matinee. I'm not sure, but and I would encourage you to look at their website, because they have classes and performances all the time. It's an ongoing operation. Theater right here in our community, and they have presentations put on by little kids and middle school kids and all range of kids and experienced kids, newcomers. It's the people, it's all volunteers, and they do great. It's just wonderful. So you might check it out. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll put in a plug for the Carnation Festival. Looks like a great weekend, great over at Anderson Park, and then a great parade. So I'm looking forward to that. I also want to put a plug in for the 4-H and Future Farmers of America event at Sunday morning at about 11 o'clock at Jefferson County Fairgrounds. The 4-H kids are going to be showing some animals, and I'm part of the celebrity show team, so I'm going to be out there learning a whole lot. So anyway, if you've got something that you want to do, come on out there. There being no further business, we will adjourn our meeting. Thank you very much.